Can you hear the birds singing? Let me turn off my fan. I'll turn off my fan. Sometimes the birds can tell us what to do. Blue jays are the cops. They're white, blue, and black. The blue jays, when they're around, if you hear a blue jay squawking and a red squirrel squawking, then you better watch your thoughts. Because the red squirrels and the blue jays are the cops. That's not just poetic. Might have to turn up your volume. But the sweet birds are singing right now. That means I'm in a good spot. And the train whistle's blowing from afar. A pretty chord. A pretty chord. Man. I don't want to take away time from what I wanted to say, but that is so pretty. I was watching, what is it, Mr. Strange and Norrell or something like that, some BBC miniseries, 7-part. I'm on the 5th episode. But in like the 3rd or 4th episode, there was a thing about the language of birds. What I was trying to say yesterday about learn Morse code, because you always hear about like these crazy people who they think they're getting messages from the aliens or from God from Morse code through this or that or whatever. Well, and I'd said, like, if you want to blow your mind or if you want to completely screw your life, like, learn Morse code. I don't even know all of Morse code. I know maybe half of it. I've forgotten a lot. I screw up my L's and my F's. But of course, an F and an L are types of each other. If you flip them upside down and so on, or rotate them. An L, an F, a J, an R, lowercase r, uppercase L, uppercase F, upper or lowercase j, lowercase r. Now it's quiet, so I move on. I'll turn the fan back on, because it's hot. I gotta remind myself what I'm trying to talk about today. I'm moving stuff around, trying to reorganize. My life is a continuous Rubik's Cube, but I'm trying to put everything like the way I used to have it. I know I've only made videos of a messy apartment, but I used to have a very feng shui-ish, aesthetically, a feng shui-ish apartment. And then I threw away, I don't know, 2/3 or 3/4 of what I had. And then something happened to me. One of the 5 big things that happened to me. I say 5, it might be 6. It's not 4. I'll account for it later, but the big thing that happened to me as far as this channel goes between my first several posts and when I started posting my amplitude hydroplex videos. Anyway, moving stuff around, and since I made, this was a triptych, and I made the other day a video with a different panel, and today I came upon this panel, and like I said, even though the George Floyd thing happened a few days ago, I only came to it yesterday, really, but it's poignant and I want to talk about it. This isn't like a great painting. I did it when I was younger. I know the mouth looks off center, but that's how it looked in the photo. One of my favorite parts about it, and I can't find the reference picture now. It was from a magazine where I got all my reference photos. Anyway, one of my favorite parts is that little pinkish red flourish at the edge of her hair. But this was taken from an image of a group of Christians had gone to somewhere in Africa to buy a girl out of slavery. And it was controversial, so said the magazine, because they're saying, oh, well, you shouldn't spend money for slaves because that, and this was just pre 9/11. This was in the late 90s. This was 99, 2000. Maybe I'll annotate it later, but that's where I got the image from. This was a girl who was bought out of slavery today, essentially 10 years ago, but today, now, not 100 years ago. And there was, it's controversial because, well, these Christian missionaries who had gathered money, presumably from donations or whatever church they belonged to. I believe it was a Protestant American church. I can't remember. I know I have the image somewhere in this pile of stuff that I've saved for 20 years, but but they saved her. Here I'd scratched teeth in. Because I'd painted this grid over, and then through it I scratched these teeth because they used to check the teeth of slaves. If I were a slave, I would not fetch a fair price. Though today I flossed a little and I was able to remove some of the blackness, I don't take care of my teeth as much as I should, because every day I'm like, I gotta do something. It's a failure on my part in one way, but if I don't do this other stuff, if I don't leave my message in my trail, then I can't, whatever, I've been over that. But so whoever this girl was, she was bought out of slavery, and she's an adult now. If, say, she was 12 then, she'd be 32 now. She's somewhere. Not just an abstract image. I'm trying to remind myself, like, not just an abstract image, like, a person who's alive because people bought her out of slavery today. And this whole trip I made was based on a story that a friend of mine wrote. I worked with him at a bookstore down in Keene, New Hampshire, small one, who actually made most of its money off of magazines, because it was a magazine distributor, and like the family who owned the magazine, they distribute magazines all over, I think, New Hampshire and Vermont. And anyway, the mom and daughter of the owner wanted to have a bookstore, so they had a bookstore. But anyway, we still made most of our money off of magazines. And as it turned out, pre-streaming internet, or just as streaming internet came about, it was also in that town the biggest. We had more smut mags than any other place around, and that's how it was. Any kind, every kind. If it was a legal smut mag, we had it. But they were kind of tucked away, and we had all our Dover classics and so on. But It was a kind of shitty bookstore compared to like Borders or this or that or whatever. But it had a wall of magazines. Anyway, my friend who worked there, who was a total genius, and I'll spare his name, a, a J.D. Salinger of our time, who completely avoided the limelight, wrote this little story for the college's Holocaust Award thing, and I based this triptych on that. This was the left-handmost panel, middle panel, right-handmost panel, which I posted the other day, so I'll post another video I have to do with that later. Alright, I gotta get to it. She was my prominent image. Her head was right at the top. He was the biggest, and, you know, that'll look like me not very long from now, as I now realize I didn't then. It was taken from, I think a Life magazine, back when Life magazine was a thing. I'm reminded of how, when I was a youngster, my great-grandmother, back in the 80s, still had magazines stacked up from the 60s in the bathroom. And I remember looking at a Life magazine of when Marilyn Monroe posed semi-nude for Life magazine in, like, I think a issue from the 60s, and she just had it in the bathroom in, like, you know how people have, you know, shitter reading material? That's what my great-grandmother still had 20 years later, or whatever. It's kind of funny. But anyway, yeah, this image, was actually from a guy who had, like, AIDS, who's dying of AIDS in the hospital, and he had his family around him. It was in a Life magazine. He had, like, long hair. He looked like Jesus. I think there might have been a picture of Jesus or a cross in the background, and I just kind of took off the hair, but I took that was the image I used for the old dude, who was the old dude in the story, who in the story my friend wrote was a German Jew who came to America, and then he experienced, like, the prejudice of being Jewish in Germany, and he came to America to escape it, but because he was German, he had a German accent, and then he, you know, during and after the war, experienced the prejudice of being German, because people would hear him speak and people would hate him, you know, and this is him dying in his bed in the late 90s, watching TV, and it's pretty funny that the remote control I own now looks a hell of a lot like that one. Power. Oh boy. Blue back outline, just saying. Alright. And this was a Barbie doll, normally in pink. Had to do the story. I got it somewhere. I called this painting Us and Them, Fear and the Dislocation of Echoes. The story was called Us and Them, Teratology, ? I still don't know what that word means. I've looked it up 1,000 times and I can't remember it. Why? Because it's not my time to remember it yet. But I'll remember it when it's time to remember it. Alright, that's enough for now. Now I gotta get on to what's going on. What's going on with the George Floyd thing, racism in America, black and white, and we're looking for a means to unify. I said before, it can't be black and white people who unify the black and white problem. You know? That's where we need our trans-Pacific. That's where we need our trans-Pacific partnership. That's where we need our trans-Pacific partnership. We need Asia to help heal the wound between black and white in America. And that's not only a fact, that's the truth. Okay, one more thing before I get going. It's so interesting, this other painting that I've been working on forever, not done yet. But it's pretty interesting And here I have my bird that's not been, it's been broken. I'm gonna fix him, don't you worry. But hold on. These canvases serendipitously are the same size. This canvas I was given as a gift from one of my art student friends. It was a nude painting, and he just left it in the art studio one day and said, "Here you go, I have no use for it." Sometimes I thought he was kind of a jerk to me. To my mind, he stole a girl I thought was mine. This isn't the time to talk about that. And always looking for romantic love instead of the love of love. But that was really nice, and some of the colors here are seeping through of that nude painting. This red down here was part of the cloth she was laying on. Anyway, where I got this canvas from, and I've said it before, but it's worth noting again, I got it from the art store down in Keene, which is now closed. It was an art store framing shop, and then later on, after I stopped being in the art school, but I still used to go down there, I was actually manager of a paint store when I bought this. I strapped it to the top of my Ford Focus and drove it home. Ford Focus station wagon, which one time, this girl I went to high school with, when I went to a party one time, she was like, "Ha ha ha, you have a girl's car." And I was like, "I have a station wagon. I love my station wagon." Anyway, the dude who had this art store made a hot sauce, Pepper Pete. He said his secret ingredient was carrot juice. Just saying, Pepper Pete. And he had one of the largest hot sauce stores, like, in the country, I think. He had hot sauces you had to sign a waiver for. He had one called Ass Reaper. Why anybody would want to do that to themselves, I don't know. But it was a whole wall of hot sauces. Pepper Pete. Art store, framing store, hot sauce store. As they say, only in America. Probably not, but stretches the imagination. Seriously though, don't think I'm not taking it seriously. I am. But gotta be chill too. Gotta be chill too. I'm wearing boxers in an attempt to be humble. A little bit silly. Yet silliness and seriousness occupy the same space. So it's very deadly, serious, what's happening in the world right now, every now. But I recognize that I'm so often will say, I mean, this is what I wore beneath my jeans and suspenders and sweatshirt today. But before making my video, I did put on a pair of briefs beneath my boxers. I don't wear briefs. This is the first time I've worn briefs in about 20 years. But my mom bought me some for Christmas a couple years ago, and they've just been sitting in the package, and I thought I understood the pose I would take because I'm posing. How do you represent yourself spontaneously without posing? It's impossible. And I wanted to be decent, yet silly, yet serious. So I figure I'm covering my bases. As it turns out, that's rational, in so much as I can be rational. Reasonable. I'm gonna have to get on with it because I think I'm halfway through my time. I didn't have the symbolism that I have now when I made this, but I had an intuition. Plus, I'd been taking some classes. This was right before I dropped out of college my third time. I've got about 3 years of college with about 2 years of credits, just shy of 2 years of credits, like 59 credits. Not that that matters. But it does, because I did learn some stuff. So I'll have more to say about how the East can help bridge the divide. I'll have more to say about Tom and Agnes. But what I want to talk about mostly today is another way that we can heal our divide. Because it sucks that white cops beat down on black dudes. And there's all kinds of things that can be said about that. Another discussion. So what about those black folk and those white folk who want to do the right thing and heal the divide? Yes, you know, what happened to George Floyd, an atrocity. And on, Ellis, on and on and on. I have another video I'm going to post about a rant I made back in like 2013, which I never wanted to post, but I'm going to post it relatively soon. It was an audio recording. And it was back when I listened to a lot of Alex Jones, and he had a rant one day about 30,000, I think it was him, 30,000 kids a day dying of starvation. And I ranted on it myself, somewhat imitating him, I guess. Well, then a year or so, a couple years ago, a few years back, actually it was when Hillary Clinton was running for office, I looked it up. As it turns out, like I think the World Health Organization said 8,400, 8,300, somewhere in that neighborhood, 8,000, 8 minutes. Children die every day in the world from starvation. And of course all the in Freakonomics, the book, there was the crime wave that ended during the Clinton presidency, but according to the book Freakonomics, that had to do with the institution, the legalization of abortion back in whenever, and basically how all these parentless children didn't grow up because they were aborted. So 18 years roughly after the legalization of abortion, the crime wave went down across the country because there were less misguided children in the world. It's tough, man. It's tough. It's tough to actually really think about these things. But there's what has happened and what could happen and what can happen. We'll shelf that. Think about it later. Check my time. All right. Don't drown the baby in the bathwater. Don't drown the baby in the bathwater. I know this is ridiculous. This is how I do it. How do you do it? How do you do it? How do they do it? This is how I do it, for now. Even though, like if we're talking about black and white, even though I'm part of the master, not the maestro master, but even though I'm an old white guy, I don't like being in that category. I don't feel like an old white guy. I feel like an old bum, I feel like what I represent is like a disaster of a human being. But I recognize in the white-black discussion, I represent like the hated thing. And there's much to hate about me. And if I weren't white, there'd still be much to hate about me. And if I were a woman, there'd still be much to hate about me. If I were the me that I am, shy those things. And so far as like, black people go, they get fucked with more by the cops in America. So what is one of the solutions? There are those, maybe, I'm, forgive my projection, but I'm trying to come up with a solution. Just like everybody else, who cares? But it's just like the left right when it's really like this, but it's not even like this, it's like this. There's so much going on. So, if you're a white person who cares, and if you're a black person who cares, woman, man, hand, manus, hand, we're all men, woman with a womb, ha, men, women and ha men. Even though like you belong to one group or another, if you're not that cop killing and you're not that criminal being murdered or beaten, you belong to the group, but you're not the specific. I'm not the specific. I'm not that cop. I'm kneeling. But that's where the analogy ends. So chances are quite good that we're associating with these artificial groups, these stereotypic groups. But we can focus our attention elsewhere. There are people in a worse place, like, I'm sorry to say this, it's just I don't hear other people saying it, and so I feel really, really guilty about saying it. But I'm not going to let the guilt that they, not the they of theys, but the they, that we don't like and shouldn't, put on us. I have to dissociate myself from that and say, okay, what's a possible solution? Fuck groups. Individuals. We're a group of individuals. Now there's a new group. There's a group of individuals who care. Fuck the color. Red, yellow, brown, black, white, blue. Fuck it. Green. Fuck it. There are other groups of individuals, fuck the color, who need help. And that's why I said it before, how there's going to be more than 50 states. If you belong to the subjugated group they tell you you're a part of, fuck that. Because you have a power. You do have a power. You're alive. You got this voice, this heart, this mind. Same for you with white guilt, this or that. Change the focus. Sometimes I climb up Fall Mountain. Vultures, the turkey hawks, are always circling. They scare me. But the more you get scared, turkey hawks will threaten their prey. They'll threaten their prey because they want you to break a leg when you're looking up at them and you take a misstep and crack your leg and fall down and can't get up, so that you'll start dying and they can come down and eat you. They don't just eat what's already dead. They're like a demon. They will scare you to death. Literally. God's bad dream. Not literally, figuratively. Every which way. They'll do it. That's what they're out for. That's what they're looking for. Everybody knows what that means when they're circling. Can't touch them. They're always looking. Vultures scare animals to death. Just like eagles scare animals to flee. If that animal stays hidden, The eagles can't get them. If that animal stays calm, the vultures can't get them. So these nasty cops, and not all cops are, most are really good. What a tough fucking job, man. You put your life on the line. What would you do? And I'm just saying, because I think about it myself. If I were a cop, and I'm dealing with someone who's like this, what am I going to do? I'll tell you what. Just for me personally, I'm a total coward. I hate violence. But if it got to that point, I go right to kill. Because I'm so afraid. So to be able to restrain yourself at all is a major, enormous accomplishment. And I don't have that. I couldn't be a cop. Could you? Shell. So the vultures and eagles are there. We definitely got to keep our eye peeled for the eagle. And that's why we go like this. But don't go like this to the vultures. Just know they're there. Keep your eye on the ground. You're looking for the eagles, because they might get you. The vultures won't get you unless you trip. So keep an eye on your feet and where you're going. Where you're going. Where are we going? We got somewhere to go to. Where we have to go is to help those groups of individuals who need help. So as Americans, what can we do? We can turn this whole thing around by shifting our focus. You gotta watch out for the eagles who eat their own, a bird who eats birds. Are you a person who eats people? Are you a person who eats animals? Are you a cannibal? Are you a cannibal? Look for groups that need help. And that's why I said about way back, not way back, but several videos back, several. We need to take all U.S. territories and make them states. Don't forget what America was. And I've said this before, but it's so important. There were people of color behind. How far underground is the Underground Railroad? And how far back in time does it go? It goes thousands of years, and it reached here. The mechanisms are in place, but we have to choose to do the right thing. They made it for us, the ordinary, what I've said before, dumb fucks. And I'm talking about me. I assume there's probably people out there like me who's a dumb fuck. But who has a heart of gold. Even if it's just one little molecule, it's there. And that's what they can't take away. How do we make ourselves stronger? How do the small people who still have rights as part of a fake group, it's still individuals on individuals, and that we have this group in our mind. So you have this individual with a group in his mind fighting another individual with a group in his mind. Fuck the groups. Create a new group. And in that new group, stop trying to convert the unconvertible. Show them what we can do. Lift up those other people. You know? If you convert the racist, great. Just speak truth. The way we speak is what we do. We speak, actions speak louder than words. A picture is worth 1,000 words plus. We need to make all of our territories in the United States, states. And some others. And we need to give them all the resources we possibly can. Money's fake anyway. It's not. It's a way of moderating transactions of worth. But we're in the process of redefining worth. America was built by the masters, the maestros, the masters of masters, not the Illuminati. Those who encaged the Illuminati. If Illuminati is the pyramid, the they of theys is the circle that encompasses it. Who kept those evil motherfuckers in place so that the sphere could be built. So that we can raise that pyramid into a circle, a sphere, so that the bottom no longer has most of the people, so that the bottom is one point at the bottom. And wealth and education and everything is distributed equally. And who's at the bottom? The strongest motherfucker in the world. And the distribution of wealth and knowledge is a sphere. The one at the bottom becomes Atlas. There's that whole book, Atlas Shrugged. Holding the world. And we think of Atlas shrugging like this. Oh, shrugs the world off his shoulders. That's not how Atlas shrugs. Atlas shrugs like a power lifter. No brains at the bottom. The dumbest, the stupidest, the smallest. But all heart holding that world. When Atlas shrugs up. I recognize that's thick. We need to spread our resources around the world. And if you're concerned, try to focus on the power of your place. And trust me, I'm preaching to myself. Every day is a crisis for me. Trust me. And making these videos is a way for me to rise up that hope in myself. And I have to share it. I have to. Even if no one watches, I will watch this. Usually I watch most of my videos about 10 times, I think. And I can remind myself, like, even if I'm dying, I'm still here. And I can still do something. And in this world where we're saturated in media, and people say, oh, it's just talk. Is it just talk? Or is it just talk? Is it just talk? Justice. For all. I'm gonna check my time. Glad I got a little time left. I didn't think I did. Actually got to the point faster than I thought I would. So what else can I say? Winston Cup. He made a map of the world and plotted every race and racetrack that has ever existed. I figure a lot of shit out. I can't say more about that. I didn't read about that one. I just figured it out. And that's a hidden truth that's still in the pyramid and not even in the sphere. But the sphere governs it. Yeah, Hillary Clinton, I said it before, but she wrote that book, It Takes a Village. It was a hard audio book to get through, I won't lie. But there's a quote in there, and I put in an essay. I wrote an essay that I was going to sell this painting. I was going to sell this painting, which came from this picture out of either a Life or a People magazine. It was in the same semester as my Painting 3 class when I made this. He was my teacher. His teacher was, well, never mind. But, yeah, I wanted to do a Chuck Close pastiche. And then later, after I gridded it all off and started, I read the blurb. Turns out Chuck Close took this picture. Synchronicity. But yeah, I was going to sell this back when Hillary was running for president. Because I buy my smokes. I stop down to the Indian store every night. And dudes worked there for like a few years. And this one dude who I befriended, one time I asked him if he'd ever heard of Ramanujan, and he was like, no. And I was like, oh, he's this mathematician, because I was watching about him on, just before the movie came out and all that. Saying, oh, he's a mathematician, and he was like, oh, Aryabhat. And that's where I learned about Aryabhat, talking to a dude down at the Indian store, because I guess that's who the Indian dudes think of as a great mathematician and astrologer from way back, And apparently this guy had like the same surname or whatever as Aryabhat. But anyway, he'd always talk to me about his wife and his kid and how he missed him so much and he wanted to go home. And sometimes when I'd come in, he'd be on his cell phone like talking. He'd be ringing me up, but he'd be talking in whatever the language is, be talking to his wife and stuff and getting pictures of his kid and all this, and he wanted to go back so bad and he didn't know when he could and all this. So I was like, I'm gonna capitalize on this. I'm gonna sell this picture. I'm gonna write an essay, I'm gonna put it somewhere, I'm gonna make all this money, I'm gonna do all this shit, and I'm gonna give it to him. It was like one of my little master plans. About the time I was done with it was when he actually got sent back home, so I didn't have to do it. I was like, oh, okay. But anyway. In her book, It Takes a Village, there's some quote about how, politicians give lip service to children, blah, 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 yet treat them like garbage. I can't remember the exact quote, but it was kind of piercing of a quote. And during this time, because I was writing this essay, it was like 30 pages. Never did anything with it. Still got it. Haven't read it since then. I looked up when she went to China. And that was back when China, no one went to China. It's not like now where it's just like Donald Trump going on China, but there's still all this shit going on between countries in China. No one went to China back then. She went, dressed up in her little pink Barbie doll outfit. And there's a really great quote, which I will play at another time, I guess, where she's talking about women. And she was like the first public figure I can remember at such a high level saying the shit she was saying. So of her entire life, she was also the person I first heard Harriet Tubman from on her concession speech at the Democratic convention or whatever, when Obama was nominated to be a Democratic nominee, whatever. That was the first time I'd ever heard of Harriet Tubman. So those three things are what that woman means to me. Fuck everything else, to my mind. She's out there in the grit. You know? That whole glass ceiling. The way women have to present themselves. And she was posing. Of course she was. You are. I am. Everyone does. Trying to get through. Trying to get that power. But what was she trying to get that power for? What was her main issue? What did she write a book about? It takes a village to raise a child. $8,000 kids a day die of starvation. We have territories in America. How much could they contribute to us if we embraced them as us? Spread that umbrella. Not an atom bomb. A parachute of love. Oh, golden parachute. Yes. A golden parachute. For everybody in the fucking world. That's the power we have as people in this place. If we shift our focus, we're all on death row. We're all on death row. Help. Help. We can help where the most hurt is. I'm hurting. I got problems. I can help. And I'm gonna. And that's what we can do.